Hi, everyone. Gil Fried here, the crowd management doctor. I hope everyone's doing well. And the following are August and September news stories from 2024. Children's behavior towards Coco Gauff at the US Open was so disrespectful that security had to step in. The United States tennis star was struggling with her serve against fellow American Emma Navarro. And unfortunately, some children who are watching could sense too that this is going to lead to a major scene at Arthur Ashe Stadium where she was going to go down. With Coco down 5-3 in the deciding set and on serve, the children started filtering down the corridors with giant tennis balls and other US Open merchandise. They were sensing the match was almost over and were moving into prime position to get autographs. Even though Gauff had the match on, you know, on a racket and could still possibly have won, that was a distraction for her. Security had to intervene and usher the children back to their seats to let Gauff focus and complete the match. This is often seen in tennis where they tell people not to move in between points, that you have to wait for the set to end, things like that. That's one of those things. It can be a distraction. So monitor your area and look at what's going on, especially if it's a sport that doesn't want that kind of interruption, to monitor it and to address those issues as they arise. 5 key reasons security gets sued. This is always important to know why you and how you might get sued. So, when an attack, incident, emergency, or other life threatening event occurs, victims and their families can turn to the courts for recourse. While companies and facility owners and operators have historically been the defendants in these cases, security companies can also be targeted. While security firms, especially contract guard companies, work to ensure the safety of people, property, and the client's operation, some of these lawsuits are not entirely without merit. That means they could have value, both for the person that got injured as well as for the company to help them understand their policies and procedures. The following are just some of the issues that might lead to a lawsuit from a report that recently came out. A lack of planning. Failing to have a crisis response or threat assessment plan is the biggest bucket where security failures and resulting lawsuits occur when planning is not done. Businesses have to be cognizant that violence, especially violence involving firearms, can occur at their facility or impact their people. This means that businesses have to research, develop, enact, effect, follow through, and evaluate security plans. Conducting a threat assessment of an organization's facility is valuable, and it enables personnel to understand what the weaknesses and threats are and how to counter them. However, a threat assessment that is not comprehensive can be a sign of negligence too. So you want it to be strong and robust, and you want to be able to execute it. And you have to have it in writing to be the most effective. The next thing they mention is training. It's one thing to have the information, but it's another to be effectively aware and trained in how to respond to threats. That's why this program in patron management is so critical. It's trying to prepare you for it. Companies should consider how they are training employees at all levels to enact response plans. The same goes for aspects of physical security. For example, are guards effectively trained on security platforms and solution? Are they trained to spot seemingly insignificant issues like a burned out light bulb that could create a surveillance blind spot or a dark hiding place in a facility? Training can also go beyond guards. Are supervisors and employees in non security, people facing roles trained to detect and respond to active shooter or other emergencies? Are they or are they not? That's why you want all the stakeholders to be as well trained as possible, depending upon the roles and circumstances. The next area they covered was documentation. If security plans and training can help personnel be prepared for an attack, documentation is what can prove that an organization has remained on top of a security related issue. The only way you're going to make sure that someone is looking at those lights, monitoring surveillance system, and doing their patrols is by having a comprehensive documentation system where those items are checked and documented in a reasonable manner. Doesn't mean everything is documented. It should be reasonable. Having 150 items to check every half hour would be impossible in such a documentation effort that it just doesn't make sense. It can, uh, you know, put and focus your time on too much crossing the T's and dotting the I's and actually trying to prevent any issue from occurring. Also, analyze crime trend. That's the next issue they covered. Those levying a lawsuit against a security company or organization have to prove that the crime, attack, or incident that occurred was reasonably foreseeable. That's a key term, reasonably foreseeable, and that the organization could have acted to prevent or mitigate it. For example, a stadium may have conducted a threat assessment and planned for specific things like concession stand theft. If a stadium hadn't considered events in the surrounding area, such as the parking lot, then it can present a problem. That's why it's a comprehensive plan that you need rather than just looking at one area and that's it. That is where a comprehensive threat assessment is, it might not be required by law, but it's so valuable and so critical to have. A public record request of criminal activity during the past 3 years, for example, can indicate an increase in crimes in the surrounding area. You can, obtain the 911 calls to your location and review them every 3 months, every 6 months, and see what trends are occurring. The venue should usually know about the incidents because they're the ones who should be doing an incident report every time a police officer comes. Now you might say, oh, look, at the police are going to do that. Do it for your own internal purposes as well as a way to know what's really going on. They should be checking with the police and should have the relationship with the police be at such a strong level that they can communicate effectively. The last area covered was supervision. Often in lawsuits involving a guard security company, a guard services company, one of those kind of entities that you might be working for, instead of conducting patrols or remaining vigilant, guards are on their phone, calling, texting, or otherwise distracted. That requires training and actual monitoring by a supervisor. If security is supposed to have the back to the field and watching the stands, then a supervisor can easily spot that. If they do, they need to act, not just internalize and go, they're not doing a good job. Do something, go to them and tell them this is what you should be doing. Write it up maybe. That action can range from just a friendly reminder to writing up a security person or even termination if that's the appropriate response to that inappropriate conduct. Surveillance videos or phone records or data can show a guard sending a text or otherwise distracted by a smartphone. An attorney can subpoena the security guard's text messages, DMs, everything like that, phone calls. And if they show the guard was using their phone rather than doing their job, that could kill a case from the defense perspective. So those are some things that were highlighted in the study, and I thought it was a pretty good study to look at liability, that it's all around us. We've got to be prepared. The next story is fan injured in Dodger Stadium security confrontation collects percentage of negligence claim. Didn't collect the whole thing, but a percentage. The failure to protect people from known risks is the most common reason sport and recreation facilities end up in court. That is why sport facilities have a duty to hire security to protect fans from other unruly fans and maintain order at an event. One case that illustrates that obligation is Antunez versus Los Angeles Dodgers. And if you've been watching these videos, I've had a number of cases involving the Dodgers over the years. Daniel Antunez and 3 of his friends were attending a 2018 Los Angeles Dodgers game to celebrate his birthday. During the game, one of Antunez's friends, Vanessa Gonzalez, accidentally spilled a beer on a fan in the seat in front of her. Antunez and his friends gave napkins to the fan to wipe off the liquid, but the fan's wife was angry about the incident. Later, when the couple left the game, the wife informed security that there had been a drink spilled on her husband. And I think that was like in the 8th or 9th inning. Gonzalez and another friend went to the restroom, where Gonzalez saw the woman who was upset about the drink spilling incident. Gonzalez and the woman got into a verbal argument near the restroom. That happens, right? You have a little spill, you get an argument, things like that. Antunes went to the concourse to look for Gonzalez. When Antunes saw that Gonzalez was upset, he tried to calm her down. It's a nice thing for a friend to do. A security person who heard the verbal argument told Gonzalez that she would have to leave and pointed to the end of the concourse way. Please exit. While standing in the concourse, surrounded by 4 or 5 security personnel, Antunes informed security that he had to use the men's room. What's wrong with that? Antunes pointed to the men's room, which was about 15 to 20 feet away. He was told he could use the men's room down the concourse on the way out, similar to what Gonzalez was pointing to. They pointed to him to go there. As Antunes began to walk to the men's room, which was near the fan who complained about the spilled drink, a member of the stadium security forcefully grabbed him and spun him around and threw him. What ended up happening is 3 or 4 other security personnel brought him to the concourse floor. They placed him in handcuffs, despite the fact that Antunes had not been charged with the crime. He was just trying to go to the bathroom, and that's what he told him he was going to do. Antunes fractured his ankle when he was thrown to the floor after trying unsuccessfully to defend himself during the confrontation. Antunes eventually needed 3 surgeries and screws in his ankle to correct the damage. Significant injury. When you have significant injuries, you often get significant awards. The Dodgers security team alleged that the force used on Antunes was appropriate since they claim Antunes punched one of the security personnel and attempted to choke him. That's the claim. However, there are multiple videos of the incident, and none of them support those kind of allegations. Instead, the video shows stadium security members being overly zealous in their attempt to prevent Antunes from walking to the men's room. As you could anticipate from these facts, it's probably not going to turn out well for the Dodgers and their security personnel based upon the fact pattern as well. But it took a number of years to get to trial. As a result of the injuries Antunes suffered, he sued the Dodgers for negligence, assault, battery, and false imprisonment. Antunes claimed that Dodgers owed a general duty, it's just general. You have a general duty to do a lot of different things in life, like drive safely. That they owed a general duty to exercise ordinary care for the safety of everyone who comes onto the property. Antunes claimed that the Dodgers were negligent because they breached their duty of care by failing to take reasonable steps to ensure Antunes' safety, even after they knew or should have known the propensity for security to engage in violence sometimes at the stadium. Antunes sought $184,224 in special damages, that's medical expenses and lost wages, and $2.2 million in general damages based upon lifetime pain that he was anticipated to have. Antunes also sought $2.5 million in punitive damages against the Dodgers. As we covered a couple months ago, there was a recent case where the Dodgers security personnel, who was a police officer, was assessed punitive damages to punish them for their conduct. In support of his punitive damages claim, Antunes argued that there were more than 15 suits filed against the Dodgers since 2018, largely involving law enforcement and security guards at games. Because of these prior claims, Antunes argued that the Dodgers had full knowledge of the propensity for certain security personnel to overstep the boundaries of appropriate behavior and engage in violence. On February 28, 2024, a jury agreed with Antunes. Remember, the incident happened in 2018. It held that the Dodgers were negligent for Antunes' injuries and awarded him $108,500, including $89,000 for past economic damages. That included $75,000 for medical damages and $14,000 in lost wages. The jury also awarded Antunes $12,000 for pain and suffering and $7,500 in future expenses. There can be damages and consequences to these kind of cases. The next case involved youth football coach shot on game sideline. On Sunday morning, September 15th, tragedy struck a youth football game in Buffalo, New York, when a coach was shot on the sidelines. The victim, 31-year-old coach for the Flower City Panthers in their game against the GR8 Elite Ducks, was seriously injured. He was transported to the hospital where he's expected to survive his injuries, though. After the incident, Buffalo police later apprehended the gunman. He is going to be charged with attempted murder in relation to the attack on the coach and several other charges in relation to other crimes. Those other crimes include, believe it or not, kidnapping, robbery, and then damaging the coach's chain that he was wearing on his neck before shooting at his legs. The Flower City Panthers football team released a statement saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you for the team moms, parents, and coaches for keeping our children safe. It was a random guy with no team affiliation, and we just happened to be there, and along with others, fell victim to a senseless act of violence." The incident raised a major concern for venues, and that is not just large stadiums and arenas, even small venues such as a small local stadium where they're playing baseball or football, that there's criminal challenges and the number of shootings near football games has skyrocketed over the last several years. It just calls for more vigilance, and that's vigilance by all. And when something unusual is spotted, you have to take action. That happened in September 2024 when a Good Samaritan noticed something was off with someone in the bushes by the Trump golf course in Florida and alerted authorities and took pictures of the person's car, which helped apprehend the would-be Trump assassinator. If you see something, say something, be vigilant, monitor what you're doing, and that might change a difference. In the case of Trump, it might have saved his life. In the case that we have, oftentimes saying something and just pointing something out can make a huge difference. Bills fan killed near Dolphin Stadium after a Sunday's game. Police in South Florida say a man fatally shot a 30-year-old Buffalo Bills fan during an altercation near Hard Rock Stadium after the Bills defeated the Miami Dolphins. As Dylan Brody Isaac and his friends were returning to their vehicle after the game, they had an altercation with the driver of another vehicle. And this was just a few blocks from the stadium, so it wasn't on the stadium itself, a few blocks away. The driver pulled out a gun and fired shots at Isaacs, who died at the scene. The man then fled in an older model Honda Accord, which is located in Palm Beach County the next day. Senseless violence, unfortunately. It's such a shame. One fan dead in shooting at Detroit Lions tailgate party following NFL game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, leaving another injured. This is another story. Second one dealing with football in this 2-month breakdown of stories. One person has died injured in a shooting in Detroit after an argument broke out at an NFL tailgate party. A dispute led to gunplay that left a Detroit resident in his 40s dead, a second man in his 20s hospitalized in critical condition, and a suspect in custody at around 4:30 p.m. local time Sunday. The horrific incident is said to have occurred at a tailgate in the Eastern Market area near the Lions Ford's Field Stadium following a game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The incident, which occurred at Shed 6 of Eastern Market, a designated tailgating spot for Detroit Lions fans, began as a result of an argument which escalated into a shooting. How frequently do we see these things where a small little thing, instead of walking away, it escalates and escalates and escalates? That's why intervention, as I say, verbal judo is so important. But when alcohol is involved, that might impact people. A suspect was apprehended and is in custody. This part of a pattern over the last several NFL seasons included different incidents involving shooting and stuff at the Giants, the 49ers, the Bengals, the Commanders, the Rams, the Broncos, the Ravens, and the Seahawks. They all saw nasty scenes in the stands around the stadiums, and they've all gone viral in the last year. A 2023 survey found nearly 40% of NFL fans have witnessed criminality at or around an NFL stadium. Around 1 in 14 have been a victim themselves. Nowhere have fans seen more disorder, 63% according to the research, than at Lincoln Financial Field, home of the Philadelphia Eagles. The most common witnessed crime, physical violence. Remember, Philadelphia is the place that used Crisco oil to grease the light poles after they won the Super Bowl. Philadelphia has, unfortunately, a rich or bad history, whatever you want to call it, of these kind of issues. The next story, security guard accidentally shoots himself, causing evacuation at Wisconsin Luther football game. According to Wisconsin Lutheran High School, an off-duty security guard unaffiliated with the school accidentally shot his gun, injuring only himself. It occurred on Friday, September 27th. Police officers arrived on scene and the man received medical attention. The school says the injuries of the man are really not life-threatening, maybe more embarrassing than anything else, though. After the gun was discharged, players and spectators immediately evacuated the stadium and the game was ended by mutual consent. And there's video where you see people running left and right trying to avoid what happens. That's why, I would love if there were more rules about fans bringing guns and stuff like that, but that's up to state legislatures. The next story involved a fan who claimed ownership to Shohei Ohtani's 50-50 ball. This is one of those things where when we start taking a look at what goes on in a stadium, we don't see it in a lot of other sports other than in baseball, because in basketball, if a ball goes in the stand, people just toss it back. Football, sometimes you get to keep it, but, oftentimes, you're going to have someone trying to get the ball back, especially if it's at a high school game or college game where they might not have a lot of balls, kind of thing. In baseball, it's one of the joys of the game that you can collect a souvenir. And it could be a home run ball, it could be a foul ball, whatever it is. But the video that was shown of this incident can also reflect what might happen in the future. Because here you have a ball that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars when it gets auctioned off. When so much money is at stake, what do you think is going to happen? There's probably going to be a fight over an object. And in this case, there was a young kid who his claim is, I had my hand on the ball, and this older gentleman who's probably 20 years older than him or something like this grabbed it from him. And so now it's going to court where they're trying to say, well, I should own it because I had possession of it. What does it mean to have possession of it? So this represents a concern I think stadiums are going to have to deal with whenever you're looking at a memorable kind of event or occasion, that maybe what you have to do is change the narrative and say, look, you get to keep foul balls or home run balls, except if we decide that we want it and it's memorable and we want it for like the Hall of Fame or something else like that, we own the rights to all the balls. And we're just going to let you keep them if we want you to keep them. But other than that, you don't own it. So that way, if this happens in the future, maybe it would stop people from their greed, which is quite unfortunate. I actually had a case a number of years ago where, I'm not going to mention the team, but the announcer dropped some of those squishy balls from the announcer booth, and they were for a good cause, an anti-smoking cause. And they fell down from the broadcast booth, and a woman was there, just enjoying the game, an elderly woman. And out of nowhere, these balls started falling, and people wanted these. They're worth $1. They're a cheap thing saying don't smoke, basically. And two people dove for some of the balls by her knee, and they took out her both her knees. She had to have knee surgery on both knees. She ended up suing, and it was a very slam dunk case because you have to be careful of what goes on. This is one of the things whenever you have giveaways or things like that things go wrong. When you have ball giveaways as an example, there's examples where fans get upset and they throw the balls at players on the field. at New York Yankees games years ago. That was one of the biggest nights for ER visits, and the reason being was the bat giveaways. That people would use those little wood bats and hit each other in the head, and other places as well. But it just gives you an example of what kind of misconduct can arise. And whenever you give something out that has value or that people can use in an inappropriate manner, you have to up the security level and understanding of what's going on to make it as safe as possible. Those are the news stories for August and September 2024. I hope everyone stays safe out there. Bye.